Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. Bill McMinn here with Eric Barfell talking about your words today. And there are a lot of great verses. I picked out a few, but I think there are so many. Proverbs to me is like one of the great books in the Bible for words. James 3's a great passage.
Yeah,
Ephesians 4:29. Yeah, those are ones that I would immediately think of if you want to read about words. I used to go through the Bible and Proverbs, and then if it was about anger, I'd put a little fire symbol there. And if it was about words, I'd put mouth. If it was about your heart, I'd put a heart. And I would just do different symbols. So then I could go back through that Bible and quickly reference. Because it doesn't lay it out. It would be really cool if the Bible just like, here's a whole chapter on words. Here's a whole chapter on your heart. Here's a whole chapter. It doesn't really work that way. So the verses are spread out in Proverbs. So it's kind of fun to see it.
Yeah, they need like a better table of contents, like a topical Bible. Maybe they should make one.
Well, they have the chain reference, the Thompson chain reference Bible, and they have a lot of those words. Like you can do a lot of those word studies, and they'll hit like this word. Oh, look up these verses, then look up these verses, look up these verses. So they actually, that was the cool Bible. I have one around. I'll look at it sometimes. If you want like anger or envy or something like that, then you can get in there, and they have great indexes for all those words. So it's actually pretty cool. Yeah, it's good. But in Proverbs 18:21, it says the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And I just think about just straight up, your words, man, they can really help someone. They can really hurt somebody. I mean, I don't think I've ever killed anyone with my words. Might have crushed their spirit sometimes, might have like hurt their feelings. Did I bring anyone back to life with my words? No. But I mean, to give encouragement, to help person take the next step. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think it's super powerful.
No, you can, and we all know this, you really say things that you didn't mean,
right?
But you still said,
right?
And a lot of times it comes across as very cutting. Sometimes a lot more than you intended to.
Right, absolutely.
Or,
absolutely.
You say something and it really presses on a wound, and it's like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be, I wanted it to hurt, but I didn't know it was going to hurt that bad. Right. Something like that.
Yeah.
It's always.
Yeah, well, and sometimes, too, we got to take some things with a grain of salt. It's like, what's the source? Consider the source. My dad always taught me. So it's like some people, the closer the circle, the bigger, I think, the impact. But your words can hit with a tremendous amount of velocity, and sometimes you don't realize it. Like the force at which you're saying it, maybe you're not intending it, but it's sitting. So, yeah, be careful. I think that's the big thing.
I think sometimes in what you don't say speaks volumes as well. If you're looking for encouragement from someone and they don't say anything, that kind of hurts equally as much as negativity would hurt as well, because it's like, sometimes you're looking for affirmation in someone's words or just encouragement, and you could just get nothing. Like that hurts too. Right. Sometimes the silence hurts as well. So in that same way,
but at least the silence, you're still guessing. Because you don't really know they didn't appreciate it. It's just they didn't say it.
Yeah, right. So
but when they say it, then you kind of know, it's kind of right there. But I do hear what you're saying. Yeah, where silence is not always golden. Sometimes silence is a bad thing. But determine when to speak, I think, would be one good question. Time and place for everything. I don't think, midnight's a great time to start conversations with your spouse. If you're working a normal shift and have a normal life, and all of a sudden, my wife would just like wait. And it wasn't even about her and me. It was just about the concerns that she had. So I'd be like drifting off sleep. It's like 11:30 at night. I think we have a problem with, and because her mind's like spinning, my mind's shutting down. Her mind's like, she'll probably take an hour to fall asleep because she's thinking about this and that and all these things that she doesn't really say or talk about, but she wanted to talk about it then. And I used to think, why are we talking about this now? Like, couldn't we have talked about this earlier? So time and place, I think, is good.
Right. Yeah, no, 10:30 p.m. is a bad time to pick a fight. That's for sure. So, in my experience,
well,
it's never worked out.
Well, I think, too, when people are already upset and you're just, let me just throw one more match on the fire. I remember one time I said something snarky to my wife and she was mad. I'm like, well, I already said one thing. I might as well say two things. Well, that was a long time of silence, after I did that. Right. Because I just figured two things would be better. But that to me is knowing if somebody's upset, or they have a lot in their mind, they have a lot of pressure, there's a lot going on. maybe that's not a time for a critique because you're going to distract them. Maybe Sunday morning, right before Mark goes up to lead worship or I'm going up is not the time to be talking about serious things because we have other jobs to do and other things to think about. So it's not really a time for us to be distracted, maybe after service or something, or Monday or Tuesday or another day, talk about this stuff. But yeah, I try to be considerate when I'm dealing with people that, okay, if they're already upset, they're already crying, maybe not give them one more thing to cry about, right? Because
exactly.
Don't add on. So I think that's where timing comes in.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like common courtesy. That's just consideration right there. You know, you got to be able to read the room there, but also saying, hey, I would love to address some things with you. I hate it when people are like, hey, can we talk? It's like, am I going to the principal's office? Like, what's about to happen right now? What we want to talk about? Sometimes it's like big serious stuff. Sometimes it's not. But like the anticipation of not knowing is like, what do you want to talk about?
Not my favorite thing, actually. Yeah. When someone goes, I need to talk to you. I want to know, like, is it about me? Is it about something else? Like, give me a gist of it. Like, what are we talking? Oh, I'm going to talk about this event coming up. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's kind of nice to know and to settle that. But I've seen couples in the past where known anger issues, known problems that way, known, your spouse has a hard time keeping it contained and you throwing matches at them and they're gasoline. And I never could understand it. Like, I could never understand, why are you inciting a riot when you know how they react and you're just knowing they're at that teetering point and pushing them over the edge, and then you're going to point a finger at them when they're over the edge and be all mad about it. And I'm thinking to myself, why were we saying anything? Why did we push that?
Yeah. It's very important to proofread a text message before you send it, and maybe sometimes delete it entirely.
Yeah, texting's not a great.
Something else I've learned as well. Having those conversations over text is never good anyway. Sometimes there's no way around it, but you have to be very careful in how a text goes out and how it's going to be read and interpreted. Is a totally another.
Yeah, I think if you're not close to people, if you're super close to somebody, then I mean, I can blather on, I can blast away, I can say whatever's on my mind if I know we're close and we're tight, because I know that I love you. I might be upset about something, but at the end of the day, we're always going to be a team. Yeah. So that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think if you're in good stead, but I think texts are not. No. If you have to, sure. If you got questions, hey, what's going on with this? And they're not around and you got to find out. Yeah, you got to text them. But, right. But other than that, no. And then you got to determine what to say, what's going to be the most helpful, because it says in Proverbs 12:18, which goes along with what we've already been saying, the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. And I think I like reckless. Like, you have it. When I think of things that are reckless, I think of, you didn't think it out. You just, fired away, came in, guns blazing, whatever, but you weren't really thinking about repercussions, where I think that you have to think about consequences too. Well, if I say this, what's the response going to be? What might the response be? Is there really any intended good thing that I'm about to say? In other words, if you want to move somebody or you want to address something, is how you're saying, what I'm saying right now really going to do that? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I think, knowing what to say, determining what to say can be pretty difficult for people, because it's like, okay, how do I ease into this conversation? Assuming it's like a confrontation. Hey, let's address this beef between us, something like that. Do they ease into it? Do they beat around the bush and like say it without actually saying it? Or some people just like come out and say it and it's super frank. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about this now.
That's what I like it. That's how I'd rather. I'd rather just hit me over the head with a 2x4. Don't beat around the bush. Because if you hint at me, I never get it. Like, if you say it around the bush, like I never really get that. But if you just say it direct, I get it, because I don't need a lot of. I have pretty big shoulders. Like, I don't really need a lot of prep time or a lot of.
How do you like when people are like, "Hey, we need to talk." Okay, let's set up a time. That time comes, and they're like, "So how you doing?" It's like, just cut to the chase. Like, we've scheduled this meeting, we planned it out. Like, I'm dying, and like, what do you want to talk? What do you want to hear? It's like, oh, how you doing?
Right.
Not good. What do you want to talk about? I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
Yeah, that's right. But no, what do you want to say? What's going to be most helpful? And we'll talk about that in a few minutes too with some other questions you can ask. But what is it that I really want to say? I've had people sometimes they'll come and they'll say blah 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 blah. We respond to it, as we should because we're guys. So one time we had this gal, she comes to a board meeting and she tells us, I want to do this. So we said, okay, we'll help you and we can do, we responded to all of it and helpful. And then I get a call. Well, that's not what I wanted to say.
Oh, geez.
At this point, but that's what you did say. And this is what we're going to do as a result. You've got to weigh that out. I mean, you can't come to people like leaders and tell them you've got something you want them to do, and then they line up and do it. And then, well, that's not really what I want you to do. Then don't say it because we take it seriously. I mean, to me, words mean things. So I take it seriously. If you tell me you're going to do something, then I'm going to respond to that because that's what you told me. Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. And sometimes you have to shoot your shot. You can't, I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with confrontation and addressing certain things, so it's easy for them to talk behind your back or like that's never good. Especially us being in leadership positions, that's something I'm not going to say I fight against it a lot, but like what I always say is I know I work with junior hires, but that doesn't mean I work with junior hires.
Right.
I want you to like come to me if you have something to say to me. You don't have to. But on the same hand, it's like sometimes people talk behind your back. It's like, oh, am I overreacting to this? Did I take it too personally? Am I being too sensitive of it? If so, if no one else feels this way, I'll just let it go. But like,
I don't know. That stuff doesn't rattle me because it's par for the course. I mean, I'm so used to it. I've been past so many people. Hey, they said this, they said that, they said this, they said that. To me, honestly, a lot of that stuff doesn't really matter because that's life. I mean, people are going to say it. They're going to say, hey, Bill did this or said this or I didn't like that. That they say it about the Browns quarterback. They say it about the Browns organization. They love the Browns organization. They probably love the Browns quarterback. They love their team. They still say stuff all the time about it. So I look at a certain amount of idle banter is what I call it. It's just dining room talk or diner talk. They're out to church after, church and they're, assessing this and that and the other. It's idle. And a lot of times if you would go up and talk to the person about their idle banter, they would honestly... it didn't mean anything. And so there's not a lot to read into it. My dad, he would chase it down. He would tell me these stories. Like I didn't see him firsthand, but he would tell me because now I'm in college and he's at church and he goes, oh yeah, somebody said, this and this about me. I went right up to their door and I asked them about it. And I was always the exact opposite. People would come, so-and-so said to me, I'm like, oh yeah, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
One day actually, Adam was with me. We were in a meeting and some guy goes, do you know how many people hate you? I didn't even bat an eye about it. I just said, those people don't even know me. And by the way, what we were talking about was this. And he later on, he goes, I can't believe it. Like it didn't faze you at all. I'm like, yes, a bunch of people have never even met me. Why am I going to read into that? I don't think a thing about it because the fact of the matter is, if a bunch of people hated me, we wouldn't have church. You know what I'm saying? So it's not, you don't read it. Honestly, I don't put any stock into that. But what I say, like you said, what we say, we need to be careful of because we can start fires. Like it says, a little spark can start a fire and we can. Sometimes fires need to be started. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you need to burn that field down and you're going to start a few fires because you have to, but otherwise, no, I don't believe in causing problems. So think about what you're going to say and how you say it. Cause my wife has said this to me so many times. Bill, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So, which I do agree with, 37 years I've been married. I haven't gotten it 100% perfectly, but I've gotten it a lot better, for sure, because I don't hear that from her very often these days. So I have heard it. I hear what she's saying. I try to do better because, I don't want you to feel like that. That's not really what I intend. That's not what I think. Well, then don't say it that way. Okay. So.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of what happens to me sometimes, like if I'm getting frustrated with the lawnmower or something and like I'm just beating my head against the wall trying to get it to start, I'm getting frustrated and I'm like, can I get some help out here? I always mean well. It doesn't always come across that I mean well.
No, right.
I'll be the first to admit that.
Because they think it's their fault now.
Yeah, or it's like, why are you yelling at me? It's like, I'm not yelling at you. I'm I'm upset. I'm talking loud. I'm trying to get your attention. I'm not mad at you.
Right. You're just frustrated.
But this is, the world I'm coming from right now. And like, especially in like fast paced, high stress situations and scenarios, I'm more prone to be like that. When it's like quiet or whatever, it's a lot different. But sometimes it just doesn't sound too kind.
Yeah.
Trust me, it is. I'm just trying to
try to convince them. You're not. If your wife was listening right now, you've not convinced her. Trust me. She still just wants you to say it nicely, and so does mine. She's not going to want to hear you're under a lot of stress. She just wants to hear, no, I talked to her the way that I should. But a gentle answer turns away wrath. So if you're in a confrontation, let's say, de-escalate it. Just say, hey, this is how it is, and be calm, and don't you start getting angry back, and they start getting angry back. And this, honestly, I'm not in these situations very often. I would see most of this happen in marriage more than anywhere else. Maybe people in a basketball, you fouled me or something. Maybe sports or competition, people would get lit up. Most times, not too much. I mean, in normal conversations like this is not an issue that I see. If there's problems, then I'm going to be barking about it for sure. But a gentle answer is going to turn away wrath, and a soothing tongue is a tree of life. And I like that. It's like, tree of life. And I think about that tree of life, keeping people alive, the original tree of life, and that soothing, right? That's helpful. That's what you want to be. You want to be the kind of person that's giving life and those words of life and those words of encouragement. And for me, to be honest, like, Eric, I'm a huge like complimenter when it comes to my wife. Like, no one is ever going to out-compliment me to her. It wouldn't be possible. Like, you could not possibly give my wife more compliments than I do. Constantly telling her how pretty she is. Constantly telling her how much I love her. Constantly. Like, there's just no end to it. If I'm around her, I'm saying something.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? So, that's just... And I've always felt that way. And then I'll hear of other people, and they'll say, I don't know how to show love to my wife. I don't know how to say nice things, and it's hard for me. I don't even think I grew up in that world per se, or that I saw it. It was just, I don't know. It just seemed like that's the normal thing you should do. You should say nice things to your spouse. Yeah. You should say nice things to your kids. You should tell them you're proud of them. You should tell them, not lie about it, but those times where you are happy with what they did, say something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, I grew up very differently. It was the three of us, my three siblings, we just tore each other down constantly.
Right.
And some of my siblings never grew out of that. And it shows, I'll be honest. They don't have encouraging things to say. So it's like, hey, this just happened. Some people will respond, oh my goodness, like, I'm so sorry to hear that. Anything I can do to help. Others will respond, that sucks. Good luck.
Yeah. No, in your situation right now, with luggage, I think it rots. I would be very upset.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just other things. It's like, there's no sympathy. There's no empathy.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to gravitate towards a person who's warm and loving and encouraging in that sense, who's chosen better words to say, and it comes across like, who's just more understanding of the situation, hurt, whatever it might be. I don't have a specific
I think it's hard. And sometimes too, if you tell somebody like something you're going through that's hard, then they'll say, oh yeah, we've all gone through that, or we've all gone, like, they're not, it's hard. Sometimes you have to remember to be sympathetic too, right? Because they're not really interested in your war story. Although I do find comfort in it sometimes and know I'm not alone. Because I remember I made a mistake at work and the whole crew was on me. Like, they were on my case so bad about it. And it was just, and all it was an order on cheesesteaks. And maybe I said the wrong word. I don't remember. I didn't think I did. Maybe I did. How could you prove it or not prove it? But they put mustard all over people's cheesesteaks. And in Philadelphia, you don't put mustard on cheesesteaks. You know what I'm saying? You just don't do it. It was mushrooms. I could have said mustard. I don't really know. Man, when they got it, they were ruthless on me. And man, we were about ready to come to blows over it. Like, fisticuffs, because we had been working like 20 hours a day, and we had to shut down at the station, and you're just working these crazy long hours. Everyone's gassed. You're tired. I'm like 24 years old, and I'm ready to go fight like the toughest guy on the thing because I'm sick of him picking on me about it. So the next day, he tells me, he goes, hey, man, let me tell you a story when I blew it. It made me feel better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because in that case, it was done in sympathy to say, hey, listen, man, we've all made mistakes, and it was his way of extending the olive branch.
Yeah, and when there's someone who's like actually legitimately listening and hearing you out,
right.
I think that can help de-escalate a situation more than words as a whole.
Right.
You know, sometimes when I'm worked up, and unfortunately that's pretty often, I don't want someone to just respond immediately. I just want them to like listen. Like that will help more than any sort of word response. That's not going to do anything anyway.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like that to me, that would help way more.
Right.
Just listening.
Right.
And like having the words to say, sometimes that's the answer. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. In a lot of situations, it's honestly better that you don't talk.
Right. Could be.
That's not what people want to hear. They always want to have the right thing to say. Like that's great and all, but sometimes it's just best that you don't talk.
Right.
Just listen.
Well, sometimes I agree. I mean, you don't have to fix everything. I think you need to understand, is somebody asking your opinion or they want to vent? Mm-hmm. If they want to vent, like I try to anymore, like especially in social media, if somebody tells me a story, I try to respond back to that story. I don't talk about myself. I just talk about what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, because I just have come to the conclusion people just don't care.
Yeah.
So as sad as that is, I mean, it's just the kind of the fact they like to talk about what they've got going on. They don't really want to hear, you know, another side of that. So you just say, oh, wow, that's really hard, or sorry to hear that, or whatever it is. And you know, you just leave it be. Yeah. You know, but I do like to respond. Like sometimes, like if you were to tell me a problem and I just say nothing, you're not going to know if I heard it. You know what I'm saying? Or if I understand it, or if I'm sympathetic, I'm not. So, I mean, I think you should say something.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to stand there like a brick wall or something, but, you know, just hear them out more so than have response.
Right.
Is ultimately what
I agree.
What I'm saying. So,
yeah, I think sometimes, but understand, they said in marriage, a lot of times it's good if your spouse is talking to you on either way. Are you looking for my opinion, or do you just want me to hear you? Yeah. I just want you to hear me. Okay. Because sometimes when I'm telling Jerry about stuff, then she'll start giving me answers. No, I'm not looking for answers. Yeah. I'm just telling you something that's annoying me. Yeah. You don't have to give me a bunch of answers to it. You know, it just is what it is. You know, I'm just telling you about it.
Yeah. No, I can tell my wife loads of like, you know, cycling stories and KOM attempts, all this stuff. Like she's no idea what I'm talking. Like over the years she's learned, but it's like, I know she doesn't care for herself, but she cares on behalf of me. Right. So she listens. And I have one other friend who can listen, and he's like, does he actually care? No, but he can listen really well. Right. And it still makes it different. Like I'm more inclined to tell him, you know, some people it's like, you might as well just talk to an actual wall because they don't
I'm not going to talk to you guys about neutral density filters, but I'm out paddling with another photographer the other day. And it was funny because Jerry's not a photographer. She just takes pictures with her phone. So myself and this other person, we just get going on, what kind of camera do you have? What kind of lens you use? What kind of blah, 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 blah. Because my wife is like,
it's like,
glazing over, you know, like
she might be talking Chinese,
paddle 100, exactly, paddle 100 yards ahead, don't listen to any of this because this has no interest to her, but it's fun for me and it's fun for the other person because we're both interested in that. Yeah. So, you know, we're having a conversation about filters, what we use, what we think. But anyway, we've gone far enough on this show. We'll come back with another. We got some other stuff to say about the subject, but I appreciate you being here with me. And we got another podcast we're going to do. Check that out. Feel free to share this one. Feel free to subscribe to the YouTube page at the church. Follow us at Podbean, whatever is the easiest way for you to listen. You guys all have a great and an awesome week.